لا إله إلا الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. I start with the name of God, the All-Merciful, the Compassionate, and I seek His help and His guidance. And I ask Him to loosen a knot in my tongue and make my task easy so that you may understand my discourse. I am very delighted to come back to Fort McMurray and meet this segment of my family and share with them my own thoughts. And I'm responsible for my thoughts, and I would like to turn this into a kind of exchange of ideas rather than a monologue where I tell you what I have on my mind, the way I think, and then go and sit in my chair or leave. This is not the purpose. I'm not here to give a lecture, even though I will start, inshallah, with some ideas, and then I would like, with the help of technology that Brother El-Kassem is introducing to me, I hope it will work. If it doesn't, it's your fault, it's not mine. And then we will interact that way. I would like to hear from you, inshallah. And to start with, I would like to mention a historical fact from Chinese history. No reflection on that particular culture, but it is for the lesson that I would like us to learn. The ancient, very ancient Chinese, while thinking to protect their country from the enemy or enemies, they thought that the best way to protect themselves was to surround their country with a wall, a very big wall, thick wall, high wall, the way they will design it, but to protect every corner of their country. So they got very busy building that wall. And they built a wall that until today, whenever people go to China, they have to visit.
That's not my fault.
It's people have to visit the Great China Wall. Everybody asks you, if you go to China, did you visit that wall that is still standing until today? And it takes different shapes and different strategies as you go along that wall. But the thing I want to mention is that within 100 years of building that wall, Chinese people were attacked 3 times, and every time the enemy was able to penetrate the wall and get inside the country. And one would say, was there anything wrong in the design of the wall? The answer is no. The wall was really such that it's not easy to penetrate it, but the enemy was able to do so by a very simple thing, very much simpler than one would think. How did they do it? What did they do? At different places along the wall, there were gates. And the gates were guarded by gatekeepers. The enemy was successful in bribing the gatekeepers, and once the gatekeepers got what they wanted. They just basically simply opened the gates, and off the enemy went into the inside, into the country. So what the ancient Chinese failed to do is that rather than building huge structures and formidable engineering feats, they should have really spent their time on building the humans that are guarding that structure. And that's what the Japanese of today learned from the Chinese counterparts. After the end of Second World War, the Japanese were annihilated. They were finished. There was nothing left of Japan. And that was in 1945. And now, in 2018, which is basically 73 years, look at Japan today. It's one of the best economies in the world because they focused, by learning history, on the human in Japan. And they built that human, and they continue to do so. And that's why, in very short period of time, they are what they are. You probably guessed why I am navigating this way. Consider Islam, that huge, formidable wall that surrounds humanity, not to really rob them of their freedom, but rather to offer them protection. And imagine some of us are guarding the gates of that Islam. And if we have weak inner selves and we are easily bought and bribed, many enemies can easily penetrate and get to us despite, not because of, but despite Islam. We are witnessing today throughout the world things that we really cannot explain. I want to mention something. I believe that when I was here last time, I talked about it, but I don't intend to repeat it in the same way. I want to tell you why I'm talking about it again. If you recall, I don't know if you do, there was a study that was published by Global Economics Journal. And I'm mentioning this and I want to repeat it because today we can go and Google everything in order to verify the information. So it is Global Economics Journal. In 2010, they published a study that was repeated in 2014 and again in 2018. When I was here last time, I was talking about the study of 2014. And I'm not repeating myself. The reason I want to talk about this study is that there is a pattern that should really make us worried. What they did, two professors at George Washington University conducted a study by developing certain indices to compare 208 countries of the world in applying Islamic principles in their lives. They didn't look at Salat and Siyam and Zakat and Hajj because that will skew the results. All they looked at are principles that are part and parcel of our deen, al-Islam. Being good to your neighbors, the kind of financial transactions based on fair economic principles. They mentioned so many principles, and they gave each one of them an index to compare countries by. And the results, I will talk about 2018 now, and I will go back to 2014 and 2010 to just share with you the pattern that shows why we are unable to guard that formidable wall that should protect humanity. Today, humanity, or the majority, I would say, are looking at Islam as a threat instead of looking at it as an aid to solve human problems. And that's what I want to talk about. These are challenging times. And when parents are trying to pass their Islam to their children who are swimming against the current, they are finding tremendous difficulty. Tremendous difficulty, let alone just teaching their children the basics. The children are looking at them and saying, what are you talking about? Because the world around us and our children is such that it's looking at Islam, not at Muslims, and saying, this is a threat to humanity. They called it a cancer. They called it by all kinds of names. And this study demonstrates what's going on. In 2018, the country that came at the top in living Islam, Islamic principles, without having that traditional name, which is a Muslim country. By the way, I want you to please never again call a country a Muslim country. There's no such thing as a Muslim country. But you can say majority Muslim countries, meaning a country where the majority of people living in are Muslim, or they claim to belong to the religion of Islam. But to say Muslim country, it may imply that the country is living the Islam of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam undiluted. But that's not the case. That's not the case. Look at the result of the study. They found that number one at the top is New Zealand. Number two was Luxembourg. Number three was Ireland. Number four was Iceland, Finland, Denmark. We in Canada are number 7. We are number 7 in Canada. And then fast forward to just find out where is a Muslim majority country first appears in this study comparing 208 countries. We find at 38, we find Malaysia. And at 48, we find Kuwait. At 64, we find Bahrain. And now forget 65, 66, 90, but keep going. Because at 133 comes Saudi Arabia. And if the study was to be conducted now, it would be way, way more than 133. And the reason I'm mentioning this again, because I think I mentioned it here before. Brother Hisham, did I mention this study here before? I think I did. Okay. But the reason I'm mentioning it again is that there's a pattern. And the pattern is sad. Whereas the countries at the top, New Zealand and Luxembourg and Iceland and Ireland, they are just fluctuating maybe 1 or 2 places. We are finding the majority Muslim countries, just congregating so fast towards the number 208. So if we repeat the study in 2022, we may just find all Muslim countries at the bottom of the ladder. And that's a pattern. It's a sad pattern. Why? Why is it happening this way? What's going on? Now, I believe, and these are my thoughts, okay, they don't necessarily reflect the truth that you may believe. And one of the problems that we are facing is that we are quickly losing our ability to disagree with each other in a civilized manner. You know, if I present my thoughts sincerely and you happen to disagree with my ideas, immediately I'm labeled as a bad Muslim. And we are quick to judge each other. We are getting so quickly away from the Islam that I talked about in my khutbah today, whereby I just implied without mentioning that there are two branches to our way of life called Islam. The one branch is the pure, abstract acts of worship like prayers and fasting and charity and pilgrimage. And these are the abstract things that we do as the 5 pillars of Islam. And the other part, which is the mu'amalat, how we deal with one another, how we translate prayer into action as per Surah Al-Ankabut, how we translate zakat into real lessons in our lives, how we translate fasting, how we benefit from these abstract acts of worship and start to behave in a way that will take us to number 1, not because Iceland doesn't deserve it or New Zealand doesn't deserve it, if they really are acting by their fitrah, by their pure innate nature, and respecting the laws of the country, and they are, a friend of mine was telling me when I, was telling him these ideas I'm sharing with you, he said, I want to tell you a story. He said, I was in Tokyo, and I had a box of chocolate, and I was in the subway, I was putting it beside me, and when I left in a hurry, I forgot that box of chocolate. And so I just basically, a friend of mine, and I didn't want to even bother about it, but a friend of mine said, why don't you call the management of the subway? I said, what are you talking about? Now it will be gone. He said, try it. So I did. And he said, Wallahi, by Allah, in 3 days, I received a parcel with that box of chocolate at my address. And he said, this is a reflection of what a human being that, the Almighty God sent messengers and scriptures to make us arrive at, to become the kind of people we should be. But unfortunately today, I don't want to even start to talk about what's happening today. But I want to tell you a story. You might have seen it on social media. Sometimes social media, if you research the news properly, can be of benefit to know what is happening. And I know friends who really verify that this is true. A group of Muslim business people who buy wholesale from China went to China and they ordered certain merchandise and they came to the owner of the business in China, a Chinese person, and they said, we want to ask you to change the label. Please don't put made in China. We want you to put made in France, made in USA, made in this, made in that. So he wanted to sell, and he sold. I know that this hurts. I know that some of you are saying, why is he talking about this? Because I tell you, As a medical doctor and as a dentist, I learned that when I have a patient sitting in front of me, I have to be honest with that patient. I have to tell that patient the truth so that she and I, or he and I, can work on a plan to really treat that disease. And that's what we really need to do. If we continue to live in denial, we will continue to go on a slippery slope. I can assure you of that. So let's not get upset. Why are we have to. So these people, they got what they wanted. The labels were changed. And that man invited them for dinner. When they went for dinner, they said, sorry, we cannot eat this meat because we really require that the meat is halal. And that man looked at them and he said, and by that time he knew what halal is. He said, you really are considered about the meat being halal, and you are not considered about the labels being halal? Is that what you are worried about? Is that the dichotomy in how you live your lives? How you really are quick to do the rituals, but you are not prepared to live by the teachings of your deen. Once Lord George Bernard Shaw, you heard that name before? George Bernard Shaw. You know what he said? Very simple, very simple. He said, Islam is the best religion and Muslims are the worst followers. Does that hurt? It does. He said, Islam is the best religion and Muslims are the worst followers. And that was some time ago. How will he describe us today? The reason I'm mentioning this is that it's hurting me to see how our youth are looking at us as parents. How parents are finding more and more difficulties reaching out and giving to their children what they need to give in order to keep Islam going in their lives. Brothers and sisters, I want for the rest of the time that I have to really interact with you and I would like now technology to start working because I want to hear from you. I want to talk about the challenges that we are facing in the world today. There are global challenges, there are continental challenges, there are community-based challenges, there are family challenges, and I want to, sorry I said, I immediately will take, but I want to share with you what a scholar said about how you can destroy a community. He's not a Muslim, but he, through his research, came to the conclusion that if you want to destroy a certain community, you need first to destroy 3 things. And you will end up destroying that community without any problem. He said, number 1, you have to work on destroying the family within that community. Destroy the family. Number 2, try to dilute and tarnish education. Make sure that the education members of that particular community are getting is not helping them to develop. The kind of education that may seem to be doing something when in fact it's not doing anything. And number 3, make sure you destroy their role models. So now when we are seeing Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being attacked as our role model, and when there are people who are attacking his character and talking about him in a way that many Muslims find themselves unable to respond the proper way, other than getting angry, taking to the streets and burning tires. This is what we are doing. This is not going to change anything. They will look at us and they will say, we told you, these are the Muslims. When we are making Islamic schools, but we are not prepared to support such schools to help the teachers provide education where they are comfortable. Muslim teachers teaching at Islamic schools are living below poverty line. How do you expect teachers who are living below poverty line to deliver the kind of education that will help our students to stand tall? Yes, there are examples where the students graduating are, boys and girls to be proud of, but there are examples where we say, please don't say that you studied at the Islamic school. Something is not going the right way. We need to support Islamic schools properly, because if Islamic education is not dealt with properly, our children will be gone. And if there are examples of failure, people will listen. Why did we have to, you see, in London, Ontario, one child per month at the Islamic school is $800. If you have more than one child, you have to borrow money. And there are people who are justifying not sending their kids to school by looking at certain examples from the community and say, do you want my son or daughter to be like her or him? So they just want to feel better that their kids are not going to Islamic schools, but we really need to support Islamic schools. And back to number one, which is the family. We know now that kids are imitating others. They are doing what others are doing. They are talking with the other day, I give a series at the Islamic Center in London, Ontario, about the challenges facing Muslim youth in the world today. And a mother came with tears, in her eyes, and she said, please, can you talk without mentioning names, without my son realizing that it's him? But I want you to know that my 16 years old son beats me up, hits me. When he doesn't like even the food I'm cooking, he pulls my hair. And I said, are you exaggerating, sister? Or she said, Wallahi, this is what is happening. And she said, a year ago, he was totally different. But now he's going out with the wrong friends. And that's what he learned from them. Sisters, I want to please, brothers, I want to please, not to make this something I am bringing to you. If you have other things you would like to share, please, let us make this session a workshop rather than a lecture. If there are, let's talk about them. If you don't want yourself to be identified, this is what Brother Hisham, said. He said there will be questions that will appear. Try to do what?
So I think some of you already got an idea. So what's going to happen, you all have to go to the website mentimeter.com and enter that code 54030 and and answer the question. The question right now is that explain in one word the most difficult challenge facing you as a parent today. And these are the responses already start coming. So people are already typing their responses. These are the responses. And
so sisters, brothers, what's the word that appears as the biggest word in the center? Our children are being handed a ticket about haram. You know, it's a nightmare for our children, not because we are doing them something bad, but the way we are presenting the concept, our children are running away from it, and it's to them, it's get out of my way. I don't want to listen to you. You know, and a most recent example that some parents did not know how to handle is the question of Halloween. Is it okay for our children to go trick-or-treating? Is it okay for us to hand candy to people who knock on our doors? I would like to volunteer to just see how we should handle this. How we should handle this. I don't want to spend much time, you know, on just one question because, look, it's, you know, I can't breathe anymore. Okay. Peer pressure, halal, haram, prayer. You know how difficult Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the recipe, how to do it, yet we don't seem to read the recipe and understand it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Be patient with them. Don't go to your children with a frowning face and say, you know, did you wake up for Fajr? Allahu Akbar, why are you yelling at me? Why? Why? You want me to do something and in time you want me to be happy with it? So please put a smile on your face. Please ask me in a good way instead of yelling at me. So this is one thing. Al-Iman Billah. This is getting to be maybe the upper teenager. You know, don't start with young kids to talk about, I want to prove to you that God exists. Little kids don't understand these things. Okay, you have to know how relevant a certain topic is to your son or daughter. You know, you might have seen it, and it's so cute, wallahi, but I disagree with it. I saw that last week. You know, on YouTube, there was a father sitting with his, and I'm not criticizing, I love people who do their work, but he was sitting beside him, a 5-year-old daughter, and he was asking her, and he was looking so stern and frowning, ما هو دينك? And she was answering, you know, كيف تعلمين بأن الله خالق? And she was answering like a parent. She didn't know what she was talking about. And we feel happy. Look, we are teaching our children. This is irrelevant. You should know when to teach what and what to give your children. We really need something permanent, not something that will make us as parents feel proud among our peers. See, I was able to do what you could not do. We have to be smart and know how to do these things. Digital, you know, the digital world, it seems that we are, I'm just repeating the problems. We need to, you know, let me try to, you know, today the problem that every single family has, from mother to father to children, you know what I'm talking about, right, brother? Okay, sister, you know what I'm talking about. The problem that every family has is that, you see, nobody can go in the morning to the washroom without carrying that disaster with them. Now, even starting at age 6 and 7, kids are having iPhones. They are having, you know, those things that they sleep and it's beside them, you know, near their bed. Other than the physical long-term disastrous outcomes. Because you see, as doctors, we know that long-term studies to show how something will affect us need what we call longitudinal studies that should take at least 30 years. 30 years to discover what these things do. So now telephones, iPhones, did not stay with our children, and studies did not reach 30 years mark to know how they are affecting the central nervous system, how disastrous they will be. But now, you see, if the kids are crying, we just have the tablet, iPad, iPhone, you know, we put it in front of them and we put cartoons. And the kids are still months old, and the kids are looking at them, and the kids now, they cannot go to sleep without those things in front of them, you know, just basically emitting radiation at them. When the kids grow, they can't communicate anymore except by looking at them, and we know there's something called a pop-up. You know, when I open my Quran application, many times there are pop-ups that appear that are, you know, they scratch our haya, our bashfulness, and it's done on purpose. So how are we letting our children just go and play with them and without, and we really need to have control over what they see and where they see it, not in their bedroom. You know, iPhones should not enter bedrooms. Please quote me on that, brother. iPhones, tablets, iPads, whatever is computerized should never enter bedrooms. And that applies to husband and wife. You know, I had husbands and wives come and they say, you know, we don't talk to each other anymore. They sit in their bed, and they are talking with others. They're not talking with each other anymore. Please don't be controlled, but you should control. You know, these things help, but we should have rules. We should have rules. Next, because, you know, look at this upbringing, communication, understanding, interpretation. Merry Christmas. Brothers, sisters, malish, let me say this. I need to. This is something. Look, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين, and you continue. You know, we are told in the Quran that we really need to communicate with our neighbors, our colleagues, our friends. You know, I disagree that if you go and tell your Christian friends happy holidays, that you are telling them it's okay for you to feel that Jesus, peace be upon him, is God or the Son of God. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying happy holiday. Sisters and brothers, stop being so narrow-minded, and I'm not generalizing, by the way. I'm saying it to myself. You know, it's about time that we know how to live in the world. The world is such that we cannot isolate. I want to tell you, and I must have said it last time when I came here as well. I tell you that every Christmas I live on a circle, and there are 5 houses on that circle. And every Christmas I have a big gift basket that I take to the other 4 houses, and I tell them happy holidays. And you know something, they look forward to it. And every Ramadan, every Eid, I receive also gifts. You see, they receive 1, I receive 4. Okay, so, but it's that, you know, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he enjoined upon us to be kind up to 7 neighbors this way, 7 neighbors this way. Did he say 7 Muslim neighbors?
No.
He didn't say that.
No.
He said 7 neighbors. So what are we doing? Trying to reinvent Islam in a different way. You know, You know the story. Who knows the story of the three people at the time of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was still there, and he was still teaching them, Islam. Yet three of them misunderstood. One of them said, I am going to pray the entire night, every single night. I'm not going to sleep. The other one said, I'm going to fast every day of my life. The third one said, I'm going to get away from people of the other gender. I'm not going to marry anyone. Okay? They thought that by doing that, they would be able to take Islam to a different height. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was upset. He called on them. And he told them that this is not the Islam I'm teaching. Don't take things to extreme. Islam is a way of life for the entire humanity, not to the people who are born Muslim only. And if you want to share Islam with the entire humanity, first you've got to feel good and strong about the deen you are living. And there's something in Arabic. I'm going to look at you and ask you. It starts with فاقد. Can you?
فاقد الشيء لا يعطيه.
فاقد الشيء لا يعطيه, which means that someone who is missing a commodity cannot share it with others. If you don't have it, how can you share it with others? If we don't know enough about our deen, and you know what we are taught about our deen, the way education, and this is where, education in what we call Muslim countries, what I call Muslim majority countries, is that education is repeat after me. I want you to memorize from page 1 till page 30, and you'd better come tomorrow memorizing. I still remember the nightmares I had as a child. Memorize, that's all I got. We really need to change that. Second question.
Okay, so everybody got an idea that you're going to this menti.com and then enter this code 54030. We only got 67 responses. That obviously parents are feeling that out. I don't think so. The kids are also.
So the bigger the font, Hisham, is it the majority small that way or?
Yeah.
I feel if I take my children back home, all my parenting challenges will go away. 2 people strongly disagree, 3 people strongly disagree. Now, look at this. Yes, please, keep doing it. Strongly agree, So now, the majority strongly disagree with this. Now, we know, all of us know, that with the world, through social media, becoming such a, they call it global village, call it whatever you want to call it, but the thing is, don't be sure that our children will get a better exposure. I want to tell you the other day, less than a week ago, it's okay, I can share that with you, that when I'm at home, that my wife and I, from Fajr till Shuruq, and half an hour after that, we talk about everything. We just prepare our agenda. And a week ago, she was almost sobbing. I said, what's the matter? And she was looking basically at a YouTube segment. Some of you might have seen it. And she said, I want to tell you, obviously I could not look at it. She said it's showing a wedding, I won't mention the country, again, majority Muslim country, a wedding where the bride and the groom asked all the guests to come dressed in their nightgowns, because they were going to dress in their nightgowns in a so-called Muslim country. This is happening in a Muslim country. And there are many other things happening that today you wonder. The other day, my younger brother who lives in Kuwait, he said we have, a WhatsApp group. You see, WhatsApp groups and things can be good when you use it for the right thing. My brothers and sisters live in different places, so the 6 of us made a WhatsApp group called Siblings, and we exchange ad'iyah, we exchange ideas about parenting, so many things. And my younger brother sent from Kuwait something that he called the good old days. And he basically was talking about how life used to be when we, my brothers and my sisters, used to be children back in Beirut, where we were born and grew up, where we used to go and knock at the neighbor's house and say, my mother sent this dish for you to taste. And in reciprocation, the neighbor will give us a dish and say, take this to your mother. Where we used to go, if I see my neighbor that I call Ya'am, never by first name, holding something heavy, I will run and I will carry it for him. If I see my father coming, I will run downstairs and I will kiss his hand and I put it on my forehead. Today, I wanted to do an experiment. I went to my youngest son and I said, would you like to kiss my hand? And he said, what? For what? Why do you want me to do that? Why do you want me to do that? This is what is now 41.
No, 14. 41 December.
41.
41. So 41 strongly agree.
Brother, come and stand this way. You will see it properly.
I thought he said strongly agree.
He was leaning it the other way.
There are some strongly agree as well. 14.
Yeah, so you must add your voice to the strongly agree. Okay, so there are 40, the majority disagree, and I want to add my vote to the strongly, not to the strongly. Now, between the disagree and strongly disagree, there are 61 in this room, as opposed to, I'm not saying that the 20 people who really agree. I tell you, Brother Muhammad and I were talking in the car when we came about the real problem, that our children don't know how to speak the language of the Quran. They don't know how to read the Quran. And if they hear a segment of the khutbah in Arabic, they cannot relate to it. This is a problem. And we really need to get to them that Arabic is the language of the Quran, the language of revelation. It doesn't matter whether your mother tongue is Arabic or not. I don't know if I once, related this because I was, on a panel judging recitations of the Quran in Cambridge, Ontario. And, the last contestant, he started to recite and he had such a beautiful voice that all of us went like this and we were just enjoying the recitation. And needless to say, he was at the top, he was the first. And after he finished his name, I said, remember, Abdurrahman. I went to Abdurrahman and I said, yeah, Abdurrahman, that was, and I started to speak to him in Arabic. He looked at me and he said, Uncle, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't understand Arabic. I said, what, Abdurrahman? What do you mean you don't understand Arabic? But the recitation, you didn't have an accent, and usually, any person can tell whether the other person has that mother tongue or not. He said, Wallahi, Uncle, I don't speak Arabic. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we read in Surah Al-Qamar, what do we read in Surah Al-Qamar? Anybody? Anybody? What do we read in Surah Al-Qamar? It's mentioned 4 times. 4 times. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ? Allah is telling us, Allah who revealed the Quran, He's saying, we are making the Quran available for those who want to really take it. Are there any takers? Allah is saying that to us. La ilaha illallah. You want to ask the other question?
Yes, just quickly, yes, one mic announcement.
So we're gonna go to the other question, and after that, a little bit of question from the audience here. But I want all the kids who are gonna do the presentation, the FMIS kids, please go in behind this double door. Sister Meher is there, so gather over there. So we're gonna go to the next question.
Sisters and brothers, I'm looking at the time, and I don't want to say sad, I am feeling that here we go again. We are presenting problems, 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 not a single solution.
Yes.
Not a single solution. Okay, and I'm going to look at Brother Hisham. You know, if Allah wills, I'm with you tomorrow here. Okay, I would like you to give me, you know, a time for a parents' workshop whereby we will talk about solutions, even a few solutions. You know, like the one suggestion of how to control the social media and how to control phones and how to make rules and things. But I would like to share solutions so that when I leave, people will say, okay, we heard, you know, Brother Munir sharing the problems. We know the problems. All he did is that he articulated those problems and left us. I'd like to know about how many would like to attend such a workshop of solutions. Can I see a show of hands?
So Sunday morning from 10 to 12, we have that time already for only parents only.
Only parents. Sunday morning, 10 to 12. Alhamdulillah.
In the masjid.
And the masjid. So you are invited 10 to 12 on Sunday. We will talk about solutions, inshallah. I feel sending my children to Islamic school should take care of everything. Now, the word everything is such a, it's a big word. Now let me say that again, the question is worded in such a way that it will invite strongly disagree or disagree. So this is, the reason is, statistics show there was a study that compared effect of friends, mothers, fathers, school, teacher of home class, the mall, television, society. They compared all of those. Who is, in your opinion, number one influence on the child from the ones I mentioned?
Parents. Parents.
So I heard a mother who felt strongly that it is the friends who have the most influence. Anybody who wants to mention? MashaAllah. This is the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That, you know, you will follow the friend that you take. So look carefully at who you will, but before our children start to make friends, probably you got it that number one by far influence on the children is, I said mothers and fathers, I didn't say parents, because the answer is number one is the mother. And that made me understand why Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ummuka, 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 thumma abuk. That there's a reason why he mentioned that, because she has number one influence on the even. I was surprised that when young men later in life face marital problems, guess who they share them with first? Their mother. They don't go to the father. They go to the mother. The mother, I tell you, if, and I say if 20 times, if she will do her job unbiased, because, you know, some become the mother-in-law and, you know, all the different things. If she will do her job unbiased, she is an institution. She is an institution. That's why mothers who take their duty seriously, they can build such a strong character that even bad friends will not be able to penetrate. They can't. It's like giving the child a vaccination. Bad influences in friends will not do anything. So mothers, I turn to you, mothers, please. Again, some of you will get upset with me, it's okay. Wallahi, no job outside the house is worth having a bad child develop in your family because of you not spending that time that you are paid about from a job outside the house. Rather than doing that, if you spend it with your son or daughter to develop a generation that will come and benefit you and society, no money in the world is worth it. No money. But I have a PhD in agriculture. I want to, alhamdulillah, education is not necessary to make money. Education, alhamdulillah, I don't want anyone to think, here you go, he's just, boasting about himself. You see, I could still continue to work in dentistry, but I chose 8 months ago to retire because whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala left for me to live in this dunya, I want to use it in da'wah. Because this is what will benefit me in my hereafter. Not the money I could make a lot of as a dentist. So we have to really think about how we can put our priorities in order, sisters and brothers. So Islamic schools, you know what I mentioned earlier, if you as a community will come together and make a model Islamic school with everybody contributing to this Islamic school curriculum, staff, teachers, then I think that Islamic education then will become something to be proud of. Don't blame the Islamic school. Blame ourselves. We should blame ourselves.
So a little bit of a dilemma here. So 7 o'clock we said the Islamic school kids going to do their presentation. That was our last question here. I have received a lot of questions here, especially from the parents, about the parenting challenge. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, we have a session already set up from 10 to 12 on Sunday in the masjid, parents only. And the babysitting will be provided in the basement of the masjid. So please come over there. I'm going to let the Islamic school kids do their presentation. While they're setting up their presentation, I'm going to take maybe a couple of questions. And rest of the question, inshallah, we will address during our session on Sunday. So the first question that I'm going to probably, the kids from the Islamic school can come and set up their stuff. The first question is that one of the brother asked, I think you touch on that a little bit, that how Prophet used to treat his non-Muslim neighbors, the Jewish and Christians.
Prophet Muhammad in Medina interacted with all kinds of neighbors, and there are many episodes, many examples of how he really welcomed everybody. He did not dismiss anyone. He did not really look down upon anyone, in order to establish a sunnah for us to follow. So I really would encourage us to consider this community as our modern Medina. Fort McMurray is the Medina that we have to live in through the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in order for us to do that, we need to study the Sunnah and the Seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And remember, if you will isolate yourself from your neighbor who's not a Muslim, you know what you are doing? Basically, you are saying you're not eligible to be a Muslim. And remember, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not behave well with his neighbors and others in Medina in order to convert them to Islam. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not do that, but he welcomed them when they chose to enter into the fold of Islam. But how could people do that if you do not project a friendly image with these people? Yes, there's a question. Yes. Can we all listen, please? I'd like to hear the question. Yes. Okay, depending on the age of your children, you should have the way I explained it is the night before Halloween. I started with that because it's called the Devil's Night, whereby lots of destruction, lots of chaos, lots of terrible things happen in the name of Samhain. Samhain is the name of the devil that is being glorified by people, and food is presented to Samhain, and this pumpkin is the symbol of food that ripes in the fall and is given to Satan. So it started like this, and then the food turned into candy and sweets and things like that. And please tell your children, there are still people who really look at this in a devilish way, and they put blades, they put needles in apples, so that when little kids will consume it, they will hurt, and some of them die. So it is not an innocent exercise. However, I would use a style that suits the children, rather than leave them to cry their heart out and tell them you're not allowed. I would have, if I were in your place, I would have sought some help from people who could have advised me how to talk to them. But, there is an idea that is now spreading in GTA, in Greater Toronto area. It's spreading, so much, and that is many masajid, many are holding family nights on the 31st of October, where, like this one here, okay, families come, they gather, they have games, they give sweets, they do this in a very Islamically friendly way. So there are many alternatives. Inshallah, next year, if you can do that, it will be something good, inshallah.
Okay, so in the interest of time, we brother will take the question from you.
Question, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Even though you really hit the nail right on the head, I would like to ask you, what would you like to say to the youth, which is we have a really smart and good-looking youth here to understand exactly what we were saying. What would you like to tell them directly so they can maybe bring the better Muslim in us rather than us bringing the Muslim on them?
Yes, but I would like, you heard the question, and there are many youth who will be with me tomorrow, inshallah, and I will talk directly to them. I would like to say that the height of the curve in intelligence, in IQ, is during late teens, early 20s. That's when human beings become the most intelligent. And if I tell those kids that you need to understand how to sort out things in life, and convince them that if they take bad habits, like now legalizing pot, weed, cannabis, many people now become addicted to it, and they destroy that productive time of their year, which is the education of their lives, and that is education, so that, you know, when they become in their 30s, they have to prepare for a life of misery, and for a few years of just, you know, living in dreams, they destroy the rest of their life. I want to tell them, you are intelligent, don't let anyone fool you. You can really make the right decision. You are capable of doing that, so we want you to do that and stand tall with your Islamic identity.
Okay, so now we're gonna move to our next item, which will be the Islamic school case presentation. And again, I'm gonna repeat one more time.